And we're going to discuss how we have to protect our minds. If we protect our minds, then that protects our body. So we have like psychic immune system. I have to be really careful what words I say, because otherwise it's going to blow up the algorithms. So we're not going to talk about certain subjects which are covered endlessly, and the situation which we have lived through now for 2 years exactly, which was pretty insane. We've survived it actually. My friends and I, we've never gotten sick during this whole time, which is rare. Usually I have bronchitis once a winter. And so we're doing something right, and I'm not even allowed to tell you what I'm doing, except I'm taking a ton of prophylactics. It would be like 6 feet of plastic bottles lined up on a table. If you can imagine, let's say about 24, 24 products. And so we have to stay alive, and we have to stay sane, and we have to stay functional and free. Here we go. So we're in this Uranus-Saturn square, 90-degree square still, and it defines 2022. We were in it in all of 2021, and this is a very challenging condition, because Uranus pretty much it's very tricky to come in a spaceship through a medieval square. So the Saturn-Uranus 90-degree square that defined all of 21, which was really the year of the absurd, that is still in effect now, and that square provokes or mirrors a lot of the problems we're living. This is also going to define the crashing of the economy. The whole financial economic system will probably come apart now. And it also defines societal upheaval, potential of civil wars. You notice in the German-speaking countries of Europe, they have, returned to totalitarianism. We had thought they survived it and their minds had been changed. And it seems like it's either a mind genetic thing or default programming, mind control probably, with the towers, where they can influence the emotions and the thinking of the people. So we'll see how all this develops. This square here was built by James I, the King of Aragon, and this was done in 1122. In other words, exactly 900 years ago. We're right now just a few more days from the start of 2022. And this is a radiant zone. I've talked to you a lot about radiant zones, about, self-sustained, decentralized, self-sufficient, networked operations. And as old as this looks, this has been rebuilt and rebuilt. So you see elements that are Cathar, then architecture clearly Templar from the 13th and 14th century. And then later comes the Gothic Renaissance type builders. And today there's a lot going on here. There are guest houses, hotels and restaurants here. They have operations going. I'm involved in some of them. We're doing our projects. It's very important that we do projects. We can meet people. We can keep functioning. Very important, we keep functioning through these years of insanity. And things are going well. This whole place was always an affluent time, an affluent energy. It's a power spot. And even during the times of the Black Death or pestilence, which was 1300 46 to 53, I think, or 7 years of Black Death. They used to have certificates during that time, can you believe it? So we're doing this again with the certificates, although this time we really have nothing. So I think they're copying the bad pieces of history and try to put it into the future, but it's not going to work. This place, for instance, over there, is going to keep functioning. As I said, it's affluent. We need to not move and think out of a space of scarcity. That's not going to work. If you think in terms of scarcity, that's what you're going to attract. If we think in terms of plenty and what we can do, then you will see plenty and you will see some level of fortune building up. So this brings us to Dr. Peter Navarro in Trump time. I will give you at the end of this clip a number of names that I would like you to look into. And those are names that you need to study. I'm not going to talk about it because it has to do with the medical situation, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to speak about it. But I can talk about Trump, who I've met a few times a long time ago, like 25 years ago we met a few times. And this is Dr. Peter Navarro, who is the economist from Harvard. He was his go-to tough guy kind of man who took care of everything from the deal with the Chinese throughout the last year, 2020, when he had to handle everything that went down. 2020 was a very unfortunate year for Trump because he simply did not take action when he had to, right? When COVID came along, he let it sail and let the dwarf handle it, and that was that. And when the riots came, he didn't handle it. He should have, by constitution, he was obliged to put military forces in. He wouldn't do it. And then at the end, the election, when it went south, he didn't do anything about that either. So those are three corners of the equation he let roll. Navarro then wrote this book called In Trump Time, and where he describes the last year and what went down and how it happened. And if you're interested in how this last year of Trump developed, here's the book. It's an excellent book. I've read it twice. It's a very fast read also, in which he goes through what happened, how it happened, who did what, and he speaks, as always, very open, very clear text. He's the most outspoken, but also the most direct speaking person. He does not, like Trump, talk in circles. He goes to the subject. And so you see, our reality is not only a three-dimensional construct like this old square from 1122. The king of Aragon gave them a license to do stuff here. They could have markets and they could trade and they could make things happen. They were free. He gave them freedom. Our reality is not a 3D construct. It is really also a construct of our mind. And in that superior psyche inhabits the inferior vessel. The planets affect, in a way, or mirror the revolution of the mind that is now going on. Uranus, Saturn, Pluto, Neptune, the conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune now in 4 months, in April 22. And then you see 3-4 years later, in 25, 26, comes Saturn Neptune conjunction, which is of a completely different nature than Jupiter with Neptune. Jupiter with Neptune will simply, as I said, aggrandize and exaggerate all of the subjects, anything from economy to Bitcoin. For instance, we may see Bitcoin cruising to $200,000, $400,000, $420,000, maybe $425,000, and then back down to maybe $80,000. This then has to do with, over the next few years, the Federal Reserve and the entire central banking system clearly falling apart. So the planets affect the revolutions of the mind, and we then receive, I explained to you that we have to protect our mind, we have to protect our thinking. We then have what we establish as a psychic immunity. The current planets reveal the war on the psyche, right? We're at war now. I told you 2 years ago we're at war. A war with China, I mean the Chinese Communist Party. We're at war practically on all segments, areas of the spectrum. We're in a war of the mind. It's an information, disinformation warfare. We're at war in economic warfare, technological warfare, and we're sort of going into kinetic war as well. So without our mind, there is no immunity, you understand? You have to protect your mind, okay? The body is then kind of like the servant of the mind and of the psyche. And this immunity I'm talking about comes from within our mind. So I'm going into the aspect of the challenges that we are ahead now, right? We're going into 2 to 3 really massively disturbing years that are going to really pull apart society. So you have to stay safe, obviously. You have to create radiant zones around you, which are not just a physical 3-dimensional attribute of where you live and who you have around, etc. It's to do really with your mind, we discussed. You see, a lot of people now, they're simply ignorant. That's not a problem. If you don't want to be ignorant, you can cure this right away by studying, by researching. So as you learn things, you're not ignorant. Like for instance, 2 years ago, I'm educated as a military, right, combat officer, intelligence officer. I had no clue, absolutely no fucking clue about virology, immunology, epidemiology, vaccinology. Do you think I had any clue? None. So I had to study. It took me a year to really study and look at all these doctors, of which I will give you the names at the end. Where stupidity is a totally different story, right? Stupidity has to do with compliance, really. People do things that are against their interest. That's stupidity. Even when they're not ignorant, even when they know things, they tend to still do things against their own interests. These are subjects that we need to overcome, and fast. We've got about 3-4 months, Jupiter, Neptune, to understand what's going on. So this is a growth process, the mindset, the power to create, right? We have to wake up, very simply, and not be in fear. We are subjected to an entire fear machine that has been launched in early 2020. Actually, on the same day as Trump was signing this Chinese deal, was the day when we knew very clearly that the virus, the biological weapon, was on its way. It had already reached us here in Europe and in the US, the 15th of January, right? That was also the day, by the way, when Saturn passed Pluto in the conjunction, and then as Jupiter passed Pluto 3 months later, that was April 2020, we had this gigantic exaggeration of the statistics, I would say, you know, the cases, the hospitalization, and the death rates. And frankly, I don't trust the statistics, because they are most likely also faked, because everything's fake now. With Neptune in Pisces and Jupiter coming in, again, we will see exaggeration and magnifying of everything that's fake, as well as disinformation, as well as there is a higher level awareness. The higher level of awareness that we're moving into will help us get through the next 2 to 3 years. Because this isn't just the next few months with Jupiter, Neptune, this is going to be all the way up to 25, 26 with Saturn, Neptune, and which is a complex time for the economy, for the whole societal structure. Saturn is structural, where we're going to see society come apart, and this is why we are going to have to be safe, physically safe, I mean, as well as mentally, psychically, spiritually safe. It's a whole conglomerate of things where we have to pull ourselves together and every day be aware of every moment, what we're doing, who we meet, what we say, with whom we talk, while doing our projects, while, you know, building a restaurant, building a guest house, doing a small boutique hotel. getting constructive. We have to be constructive over the next few years to get through this. And with that, we will not only survive it, we will thrive in the next 3 years. I can add one more point on a very constructive note. Once we pass 2024-25, this alignment Saturn Neptune in Pisces and Aries right on the cusp, we then move into 2030. What changes then are the alignments between Pluto, Uranus, and in the middle of them at 60 degrees each, Neptune. So Pluto, Uranus in a 120 degree cycle is a very elegant change dynamic where things will happen faster and much more easier. It's technological in nature, network, decentralized, right? Uranus in Gemini then and Pluto in Aquarius. That will be a lot better than all this what we've now lived through for the last, say, 10 years, where Pluto was in very harsh aspects to other planets and was basically taking everything apart that we don't need. I mean, there's a lot of things that don't work anymore. The central bank system, the whole financial, economical system, it does not work, so it needs to go away. And first it has to go away before we can build something new. It's not that we will build on a destroyed structure only, we have to change the structure, we have to come up with new systems. Uranus, Pluto from 25 to 2030 is definitely about system management, information technology, and also energy technology. It's time we figure out that we can use cleaner energies that are to a large degree self-sustained. I give you an example. The French have to now close down their old decrepit nuclear reactor, and that's the right thing to do because otherwise there'll be accidents like Fukushima and Chernobyl. Now the Russians have learned from Chernobyl. They have now the ability to put mini nuke plants on a larger ship and float it out and power up a whole area in the Arctic, which is a very hostile environment. If you go to the Arctic, you'll know what we're talking about. So they can actually power up a situation in the middle of nowhere with their mini nuke plants. So why can't the Europeans build miniature nuke plants in, you know, relatively nice climate and power up their countries? The governments are basically dumb, right? I mean, you understand, they're very stupid, okay? They do things against their interests, as well as they're ignorant, as well as they do not wish to learn. So there comes a time when these governments will move away. Like, for instance, these people who created the entire medical situation that we went through the last 2 years, they will be held accountable, and the parameter for holding them responsible is the Nuremberg Code. The Nuremberg Code came about in August 1947. That's 80 years ago or so soon. And it made of 10 points, right? And the very first point, that's the one that was violated right away. It has to do with voluntary consent. That's verbatim the first few words of the code. That voluntary consent is the most important element in a medical experiment. But we'll talk about that more and about what's going to happen and also about the astrology in the next 2 years. In Trump time. We're in a zone now of time that I would call like Montauk biowarfare. I mean, we are in Biowar. This is a psychological operation that has been pulled on the whole planet. Right at the moment, I explained to you when Saturn passed over Pluto in Capricorn, that was on the 15th of January 2020. The actual Biowar began at the moment when the bioweapon was released, and we understand this was actually in August or September at the latest of 2019. I mean, Trump actually was told in November, believe it or not, that there were dead bodies at the laboratory in Wuhan. But for some reason they didn't exactly know in detail what was going on, so they just let 2 more months roll. And it is in that 2 months, November, December, and January that the whole thing was spread over the whole planet. This is why I explained to you the psychic immune system. What do we need to do to be immune? It's okay, you can take prophylactics and all the stuff the doctors will tell you, and I take them. I mean, if I showed you my plastic bottles and all the pills and stuff I take, it's like 2 meters if you line them up on a table. But really, it's a psychic immune system that helps then your body. So, we have to stay now, I'll repeat, self-sustained, right? Self-organized, self-sufficient, and decentralized, and network connected. You have to stay sane, you have to stay safe and healthy, obviously, and functional and free. So again, I'm showing you these old squares because we have a lot of projects that involve guest houses, boutique hotels, and hospitality business. Hospitality business is a very beautiful and elegant business, but it's also the most difficult, right? Because you're working with people, clients, some of them are not in good shape, not in good mood, not ignorant, stupid, etc. But you have to be nice with them and possibly even educate them. It's a very interesting world, this business of hospitality. It brings you in touch with many people from all over the world, connections and networks, and eventually you can pass on your ideas to people and they think about it. You give them links, you let them look at people like Dr. Rashid Buttar or Patrick Byrne, and let them think about what these two guys talk about, what happened, what's going on now, and what we should do. So again, I wish you the best, and you need to stay free. Protect your mind. Be well, and have a happy new year, 2022. We're on it now in 96 hours.